Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private.
Hello again. Welcome back to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. My name's Oliver and I'm a recovering addict. Today we have a really good friend of mine who also happens to be my sponsor. His name is Tim. Say hello, Tim.
Hello, Ollie. How are you today, mate? I'm
going really well, mate. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me on. It's all good. Thank you.
Excellent. Cool. So we're going to start with the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous Daily Reflection. And the reflection we're doing is the 11th of October. The title is Self-Restraint. Our first objective will be the development of self-restraint. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 91. My drive to work provides me with an opportunity for self-examination. One day while making this trip, I began to review my progress in sobriety and was not happy with what I saw. I hoped that, as the workday progressed, I would forget these troublesome thoughts, but as one disappointment after another kept coming, my discontent only increased, and the pressures within me kept mounting. I retreated to an isolated table in the lounge and asked myself how I could make the most of the rest of the day. In the past, when things went wrong, I instinctively wanted to fight back. But during the short time I'd been trying to live the AA program, I had learned to step back and take a look at myself. I recognized that, although I was not the person I wanted to be, I had learned not to react in my old ways. Those old patterns of behavior only brought sorrow and hurt to me and to others. I returned to my workstation, determined to make the day a productive one, thanking God for the chance to make progress that day. Beautiful reading.
Yes, very nice.
So, this reading has a lot of facets in it that we can discuss today, Tim.
Yeah.
The first thing and the major thing that I got out of that is that this person in the reading had expectations of how their recovery and their life should have been going. And you had a fair bit to say about that. What do you think about that, about believing that my recovery should be going a certain way or my life should be going a certain way, and perhaps I don't feel like I'm far enough along that path?
Yeah, well, look, it's good. I don't normally do the AA readings. I normally do the NA readings. But look, I love this one. You know, that was the first thing that jumped into my head too. It's the expectations. It's like he's talking about self-restraint, and I think that rolls around to later in the reading. But he's expecting himself and his day to be at a certain point. Like, why should he expectations like that? I look at the universe like it's always perfect. All right, so that there is nothing wrong unless we create something wrong in our own heads. No matter what's going on around us, everything's okay. You know, even if horrible stuff's happening, like, you know, loved one dying, stuff like, you know, extreme stuff, it's okay. It's like it's part of life. It doesn't mean it's fun, and it doesn't mean we're dancing with joy, but it's all part of the journey. So and I used and drank on this for years, is that all I did was I just wanted my life to be where it wasn't, and I kept projecting where I thought I should be. And when it wasn't happening, I was so uncomfortable, I couldn't accept the world around me. And I wanted to change the world around me to make me feel safe in it. Unable to do that, I put a chemical into my system so I felt safe. And that worked when I was young. At first it worked, but it stopped working, and the consequences of that unfolded into absolute just, you know, everything in my life was just falling apart.
Disaster.
Totally unmanageable. Yeah.
I actually had the same thing happen to me around a relationship. I wanted things to go a certain way, and every time they never went the way I wanted, I would fall apart. And that seems to be a recurring thing from my active addiction, and also in recoveries, that I get uncomfortable with things beyond my control, which is that's my personal main defect, is control. So this is really an amazing reading, because it just touches on that really well.
I've never met an addict / alcoholic who that wasn't an issue for. It's all about control. And what we realise is that we've been desperately trying to control everything outside of ourselves, everything external, which is uncontrollable. Like the one thing we actually have control of, which is ourself, our actions, and our response. Like he mentions react. I was going to react in the usual way. No, we don't react anymore. We can stop, we can take a breath, and we can respond. And that's where the self-restraint comes in. So I don't have to decide everything's not right. I can respond appropriately instead of reacting with emotion. I can let the emotions wash through me and just respond. And I think so the key for me is like, what are my expectations? To change that, I have acceptance, and just accept a day as it comes. And then letting go of outcome. Why did I expect my day to go a certain way? I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm probably going to have a similar work day to what I normally have. You know, I mean, how do I know my bus is going to be on time? How do I know I don't know any of that stuff, but I just accept whatever happens, and I prepare and I plan as best as I can for things that might happen. And then I roll with whatever happens. And I go, isn't this great? And I would look at this as a really good morning for him. Like if this happened to me, I would reflect on that and go, wow, why was I thinking that? What can I learn from this? You know, like the key for me in my recovery has been to stop seeing things as good or bad or right or wrong, to just see them as part of the journey and accept every bit. What I used to see as good is sometimes, I don't know, maybe it isn't as good. Maybe I'm obsessing about a girl or something, and I'm freaking out. You know, I've started obsessively overeating food when I you know, after a few years clean, I joined OA to deal with that because I couldn't deal with it.
So what's OA?
Overeaters Anonymous. 12-step program, but applying to food, because what happened was it was my last, the last thing I was externalizing. I was overeating food as a source of comfort to make myself feel safe. And it was hindering my recovery because I had lost the obsession to use drugs. The urge to use drugs had left me a long time ago. And I was managing my life really well, except for one area, that one little area. And so for me, a day like this, it would have been for me, I've overeaten food again. What am I doing? Instead of kicking myself about it and going, oh my God, how useless am I? I've done it again. I go, okay, so what can I learn? What can I try differently? How can I change my perspective of this? And I do that with everything in my life. And that's what they call, that's what they mean by using the steps in every part of my life. And I apply these steps to my work life, my home life, my relationships. And I look at everything with a new perspective.
Amazing.
And then,
so hang on, you've dug up so many things that I want to touch on. The first thing that came to my mind is that, yes, when we put down the drugs or the alcohol or whatever it is, that there are other things that come up, which is why you later on in your recovery, after some time, did seek to join a different fellowship to deal with something else that came up for you, which was food. The other thing was that as it mentions in the reading, is that you've learned to not fight back, and you've learned to avoid behaving and thinking in the old ways of your active addiction of expectation and expecting things to go a certain way, and getting disappointed when something doesn't. And that's so I was just going to say, that's exactly what the character in this reading did. He said he retreated to a quiet table in the lounge and was able to reflect on what was going on. And we were just going to perhaps talk about how our listeners, or how you go about doing that. We might take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about how we can change our day from going in a perceived bad way to going perhaps better with a little bit of reflection and maybe some prayer. Stand by.
You're listening to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. Like what you hear? Then visit us at www.rehab.melbourne for more shows.
Welcome back to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. So we're with Tim, and we were just talking about the character in this reading who was fretting about how he thought his life and his recovery weren't going the way he wanted. And he had a bit of time, and I think this must have been a learned behaviour from attending, as he said, being in the AA program, that he stepped back and he took some time to just evaluate what was going on and realised that he had actually come so far because he was learning not to react in old ways. So can you maybe elaborate on that and talk about how that you had that experience, if you did, how you learned not to react in old ways, and how did you do it, Tim?
Well, all my reactions were based on fear, and all my using was based on fear, and fear was a great, it takes away your capacity to react rationally. So what I found was by just breathing deeply and restarting my day or restarting that moment. So the effect of trying to fight something, you're trying to fight something that's outside of your control. You're never going to win. It's like holding back the tide. So if you can take some, so this is what I call putting the program into your life. So that's what he's done. He's gone, hang on a second, let's take a breath and have a look at this. So a few deep breaths and then look at it in a new perspective and say, okay, so what can I learn from this morning? Well, this has been a great morning because I've learned that I'm still trying to have expectations on myself and on where I should be. So I need to work on that. There's something here I can work on. I've stopped. I've reset. Everything's okay. And I worked out from multiple times of doing that kind of behaviour, which I learnt through the steps. Working the steps is very important. That I learnt that I could basically just go, hang on a second, is there really something wrong? No. Now, in another day, exactly the same situation, I can now perceive it in a different way before it even gets to that point. So I don't let it get, it doesn't even get to that point in most cases for me anymore because I'm already thinking that. I'm already saying, hang on, there is nothing wrong. Like even my father dying was okay, if you know what I mean. I was like, it wasn't sad. It was all these things that emotions came through me. But I was able to just, remember this beautiful man that I loved without thinking there was something wrong. It was just the way life is. And rather than wish he was there still, which I couldn't change, let's have some love and remember the beautiful man that was in my life for all those years. And so I was able to let go of the stuff that's out of my control and accept it, and then everything's okay. There's nothing wrong. Take a breath, and then I can start doing the right thing in my life for myself and for other people and start giving instead of being wrapped up in all this stuff in my head about how I should be and how everything should be. I can relax and I can give. And then when I give unconditionally, suddenly your life starts getting filled with joy. So it takes me off of me and allows me to help other people. And through that, I find this absolute serenity. It's beautiful.
Amazing. So we're talking about sort of making this progress. You've made a lot of progress spiritually over your recovery. You always, as far as I know, because obviously you're my sponsor, so we've chatted a lot. Your level of spiritual growth has helped you immensely in your recovery, I would say. How does your spiritual practice look, perhaps for the people who are in early recovery? You're mentioning a lot of things that they may not be super familiar with, but can you just sort of paint a little picture about what that's like for you?
Yeah, well, look, I was always a devout atheist, and I still consider myself an atheist because I don't follow a religion. I don't believe that God created the universe or plans anything, but I believe in an exchange of energy with the universe. I call my higher power Sotu, spirit of the universe. And I literally just feel like I'm exchanging energy with it. And if I'm giving positive, I get positive back. So every morning I say a little prayer to the universe. I get out of bed an hour before I have to leave for work, a bit more longer than that. Get up at 5 o'clock. I do get on my knees. I do a little prayer. I do a few little spiritual readings, and I do a meditation. And the meditation is I think it is the best tool I have in recovery. It teaches me.
I've also found that meditation is a really powerful tool, and you've helped me with that actually. Another question for you, Tim? What if say I'd sort of been to treatment and I've left treatment and I'm wondering what that next step is. So perhaps I've been involved in some NA or AA meetings and looking at doing some spiritual stuff. What would a good first step be? Well,
first thing is forget you think you know everything. Forget you think you know the answer. Go in with a total open mind. As soon as you think you know the answer, it's probably it's your old behaviour. So start again. Pretend you know nothing. Totally open mind. Just go in with, I know nothing about recovery. I'm teachable. I surrender to the program. Trust the program. Follow the direction. Do the suggested things. Find a sponsor who's spiritually grounded and listen to. Not a sponsor with a lot of clean time. That's sometimes good. But
you've actually got slightly less clean time than me, and that was something I had to...
12 days, yeah.
12 days. It's coming up, isn't it? 4 years.
Yeah, yours is on Saturday,
We have to sort of think about wrapping up because, I mean, I'm going to get you back on this segment to discuss more things because you're just a really powerful force for good in my life, and there's a lot that you've thought about and learned through your recovery that you can share. I'm just thinking, what would you say to someone in early recovery, or what would you say if you could go back? I always do this at the end of some of our episodes is, what would you say to yourself in very early recovery if you could?
I would just say, look, it gets better. Trust the program. Everything's going to be okay. Just work the program. Work the program. Don't sit there and attend the program. Work the program.
Get involved.
It works. The program works if you work it, and it really does. And you don't have to have, however you do that will be your journey and your version of how you work the program. But if you put the effort in, you will get the rewards, and just hang on because it does get better.
Well, there you go. You've heard it from a very spiritual man. Thank you for coming in today, Tim.
No worries. You're quite welcome, Ollie. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.
No worries.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Cast. For more, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.